Hi, Gook. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about the origin of your call sign?
So it's actually kind of a joke.
Hmm.
Gook is actually a racial term for Vietnamese or Korean people.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm half Korean, half Chinese.
Hmm.
I just thought it was amusing, to be fair. Yeah.
And then you just went with it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
You,
Pretty
you
much.
took it. Okay,
Can't
great.
take it too serious.
Yeah. So, okay, where are you originally from? I hear the American accent. Where exactly in the United States?
Colorado. I was born and raised in Colorado.
Great, awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about that state for folks who don't know, that's not so touristy as perhaps California or New York? What's it about?
It's actually quite touristy. There's all your major ski resorts are
Hmm.
there. You got Keystone, Breckenridge, Winter Park, Vail. So really big, really big on the skiing, really big on the hiking, the camping, the rock climbing, anything outdoorsy really. That's where the Rocky Mountains cut through.
Yeah.
So lots of fun there. A whole bunch of reservoirs. So anything outdoorsy related is Colorado.
My call sign is Seattle. I'm international cooperation lead at Azov 1. And today I'm talking to call sign Gook. He's a junior sergeant at the Azov International Battalion. Hi, Gook.
Дуже приємно.
Навzajem. So, how did your military career start? How did you decide to go into the army?
That's an interesting question. So I never intended to go into the army.
Mm.
My brothers are more patriots than I am. My younger brother and my older brother are more patriots than I am. My older brother tried to kill himself when I was in middle school. Um, and when he was trying to go through ROTC during college, they asked him about the scar on his neck, and he told them the truth. Got him kicked out of that, but he found a way that he got a waiver. He got a waiver to enlist. Uh, yeah. So after he tried to kill himself, his motor functions weren't all there. He kind of ran and walked a little bit funny. Um, just wasn't a good match. So I actually enlisted with him, and yeah, it's kind of how that took off.
As a way to support him, to
Yeah,
basically provide
yeah. So we
these.
went through basic together. We went through airborne school
Mhm.
together. We were supposed to go to the same unit, but
Yeah.
it's the army. Somebody messed up the paperwork, so he went to Second Brigade, and I went to First Brigade.
But before that, what did you study? Did your education somehow prepared you for this military path?
Not at all. I studied music production. I
Well,
studied orchestral music production. So I had a couple of projects were some small indie games, some small indie films, stuff like that. So kind of a career jump. It was definitely kind of a career jump.
so a leap from orchestral music
Hmm.
to the military is not a very obvious choice.
No, not at all. One of them is definitely more on the creative side, not a lot of structure and all
Yes.
that, and the other one's definitely a lot more regimented. Yeah.
So, is there something that you took away from your background in orchestral music that is kind of useful or helpful here in the military?
Um, Specifically as a combat engineer, I think so.
Hmm.
Being a little bit more creative and being able to think outside the box,
Yeah.
especially with like engagement area development, it kind of helps you think of weird and creative solutions to
Yes.
terrain obstacles and different just different field problems.
You mentioned engineering. Can you tell us a little bit more about your specialty?
Yeah, so half of it's really fun and half of it kind of sucks. The really fun part is when we get to blow stuff up. The part that sucks is when we have to build bunkers and lay out sea wire and and all that. But as a sapper, a lot of it's demolitions and then disposing of say FPVs that have crashed or demining an area or trying to check for booby traps, especially like enemy caches and stuff like that once you've taken a position.
Impressive. But sapper is probably one of the most dangerous jobs in the army, right? How does one become or decide to become a sapper?
For me, it was kind of an obvious choice. I was a sapper in the U.S. Army, and then I came over here, so it was kind of a natural transition.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't realize. I don't know if it was by my own ignorance, but I didn't realize how in demand a sapper would be here. Oh, I figured, I'll come over and maybe I'll be a combat medic or something like that. And then everybody's like, no, you're staying sapper. So I
So,
just kind of
based on your experience, it wouldn't be a sort of exaggeration to say that sappers are one of the most in-demand specialists in the Ukrainian military.
they're definitely in demand. I don't know about most in demand. I think medics are quite in demand as well.
Mhm.
just for saving lives, and especially on the civilian side too. All the volunteer groups helping evacuate people, and yeah, I think medics are definitely priority.
Right. Is there one word that could accurately, precisely explain what you're doing in the military as a sapper?
Fun. I think fun.
That's definitely probably not the answer that many people who are watching us expected, right?
We get to play with a lot of explosives. And what I always tell people usually is if you mess it up, it very quickly becomes somebody else's problem. It's not really your problem anymore.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you think that people don't always fully understand the importance of sappers in the military, especially if they don't have
I
friends,
think so. I
contacts?
think so. Especially so in Iraq, we were doing mostly counter IED. Um, and obviously landmines, not a lot of countries participate in, still producing and building landmines or actively mining areas. Uh, So a lot of my friends are very surprised. Like I keep in contact with some of my old army buddies, and they're definitely surprised at just the amount of stuff that we see out here.
Can you please explain a little bit more about that? The level of and the scale of landmine contamination in Ukraine for folks who are watching us. How would you describe that scale?
I don't know if this is the right word, but incredible.
Mhm.
It's honestly just kind of mind-boggling how many munitions are in Ukraine.
Yes.
It's not even just mines. It's anything,
Yes.
unexploded rockets, grads, smirches, anything like that. We got fabs that are just kind of sitting in farmers' fields.
Yes.
Out in Sloviansk, there was a farmer, and we noticed that he kind of planted his crops in a weird pattern. And when we asked him about it, there was a whole bunch of, what was it, the 9N40, the submunitions.
Yes.
So we had to go out there and collect them all and blow those up for him.
And
Yeah.
that's also a huge danger to civilians,
Oh,
to the
absolutely.
civilian population living in those areas close to the front lines,
Hmm.
potentially, jeopardizing their lives and livelihoods, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
indeed. And I think this is exactly why people have to understand how important your job is, because you're protecting not only your brothers in arms, but
Hmm.
also civilian population. Yeah,
Right. Right.
excellent. So, Gook, you're from Colorado,
Yes.
and one thing I learned about Colorado is there's a booming MilTech sector in that state, a lot of military innovations. Is there something else that we don't know about the state and you would like to tell us more about?
So it's Colorado's in a weird place right now. The voters are kind of going all over the place. So there's been a whole bunch of gun laws trying to be imposed and all this other stuff. Magpool, which was actually started in Colorado, moved out of there. It's it's in a weird place right now. I'm going to be honest. As for the military sector, I can't speak on that. I know a lot of tech firms are in Colorado now. I know just people like shooting guns up there.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you earlier, up in Pawnee, it's kind of on the eastern side and right on the Wyoming border.
Yeah.
People just go up there and shoot guns. It's totally legal. Just don't hit a cow or anything that'll, don't hit a house, don't hit a cow, anything like that. And it's free range. There's 3 gun that runs up there.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of fun.
Was there a specific moment in your life back in the United
Hmm.
States when it hit you that you just had to go to Ukraine?
Yeah, actually, so I got out of the army in December of 21. The full scale invasion started in 22, and I thought to myself, I should probably go there. I talked to some of my friends, some of my family. A lot of them were obviously concerned for my safety, as any good friends or family would be, and they just told me to think on it. So I thought about it for just about a year. But every time I would do something nice. I would go out to a restaurant. I would go to the cinema. I would do something, that anybody would consider like a leisure activity or just anything nice, really. Um, kind of kind of gnawed at me with guilt. I just kind of felt guilty every time. Some Ukrainians getting evacuated from their homes, some Ukrainian apartment buildings being bombed or something, and I just felt guilty. So eventually I came here.
Did you keep in touch with any Ukrainians during that period in the
No,
run? No?
I had no contact with any
No
Ukrainian. I'm
friends?
I'm going to be honest. This is my ostensibly it's my first time in Europe. Uh, I don't. technically stopped. We technically stopped to refuel in Ramstein on the way to the Middle East, but I don't really count that. Yeah.
So you mentioned your friends and family were sort of worrying about what you
Yeah.
would decide.
hmm
What was their reaction when you decided you would go to Ukraine?
Some of my friends tried to talk me out of it. Uh, my family, they are supportive of me and what I do. They don't have to agree with it, but they are supportive of me and what I do. So, like I said, my older brother, he was in the army as well. My younger brother, he was in the army. He's actually just getting out, and so they understood. They didn't agree with it, but they understood.
I think that's a very good approach, and it sort of probably also reaffirmed your conviction that you had to do it,
hmm
right?
At the end of the day, it's not their life.
Yeah.
Um, it, it, I, I understand that, if I get injured or something like that, I have family that will be obviously kind of torn up about that. But at the end of the day, I have to do what I think is right. It doesn't really matter what everybody else says. I have to do what I personally feel is correct.
Absolutely. Where have you worked in Ukraine? Which battles, which sort of military activity have you been involved in?
It was primarily Kreminna Forest with the Second Legion. That's the bulk of it. Yeah,
Second Legion of the Defense and Intelligence of Ukraine, right?
the ILDO. Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So the battlefield is now saturated with all kinds of military technology innovations.
hmm
Have you tried any new technologies in your sapper work? If you, of course, can share that
Oh
publicly.
yeah. It's strange. Like I mentioned before, in the U.S. Army is primarily like counter IED. This it's kind of strange being on the other side of that because obviously the resources the resources are sometimes limited and you have to make do. Sometimes it's anything down to hobbyist materials. So it's kind of strange being on the other side of making IEDs or building things for FPVs or Mavics or anything like that.
Is there some kind of new technology that is actually useless on the battlefield that you've decided is not worth these resources?
Useless.
Uh,
I don't know about useless. I think everything kind of has a place.
mhm.
It's kind of an arms race right now. It's like, like the sword versus armor and then the bow and then the gun and then it's kind of like that, right? So the FPVs and then the jammers and then now the fiber optics. So I think everything still has a place. Um, it really comes down to your ability to mass produce it and the ease of mass production
Yeah.
and its actual effectiveness.
So you fought in the Serebrianskyi Forest, right? Can you share some memories you have from that experience? Perhaps some of the most challenging moments you had to endure there?
Getting shot at by a tank was very unfun. um, uh, challenging moments. Yeah. So I think I was speaking about this with my buddy earlier, but we had a Polish friend, and he was actually supposed to break contract that morning. He was going off. He was going off to a wedding back to Poland, so he wasn't supposed to be out there. And they sent him on mission anyway, and he got shot in the face, and we're not sure with what, but he had his face was gone, and we had to drag him out of there, and yeah, that kind of sucked. He wasn't supposed to be out there, and it's kind of what happened.
Have you managed to save him?
No, no, no,
My condolences. Yeah. Losing your brothers in arms is probably one of the hardest things that you have to endure, right?
yeah.
Um, if we talk about the battlefield and your sapper work,
hmm
is there any mine that you absolutely hate dealing with?
Anything with electronics,
Hmm.
they suck. Anything. Oh, actually, caveat to that: anything with electronics or a self-destruct.
Yeah.
We ran across a couple of like PTM4s,
Yes.
and those are anti-tank mines, anti-vehicular mines, and so they're naturally laid out on roads.
Yeah.
So you can't really destroy them in place because you still have to use the road. You can't really blow craters in a road that you have to use. Um, Electronics always get hairy. They always get hairy. You don't know if they're still on, and they usually have a self-destruct as well.
Yeah.
Going to the self-destruct thing is if it's out there and it's past its like self-destruct timer, something obviously went wrong. So any little thing could activate it again, especially mechanical timers. Uh, yeah, those stink. Yeah, anything with electronics, anything with self-destruct timers, those are always hairy to play with.
You mentioned you started in another unit of Ukraine's defense
Mhm.
forces. Why did you decide to join Azov?
I don't know how much shade I can throw on the 2nd Legion legally. I watched that unit get wiped out twice over, and I watched just severe mismanagement. Another one of my friends, Salmo, he they were pulling out, they were ceding a little bit of ground. They pulled out of a bunker. They were supposed to have Ukrainian units move into that bunker after that. Um, and I don't know why they didn't leave people. It's just severe mismanagement, just at the most basic level. You know, you always pull security, you always have somebody watching stuff. So they all pulled out of the bunker and they sent him back to go grab him and 3 others back to go grab more ammo and everything like that before giving it up. Um, Turns out they were not Ukrainians in there anymore. They were Russians. So he literally just walked into the bunker, got shot, and his 3 buddies ran. So severe mismanagement. I kind of got sick of seeing my friends die, and yeah.
So, how did you hear about Azov in the first place?
One of my buddies on the sapper team in 2nd Legion, he was saying that, oh, Azov is looking for a sapper
Yeah.
instructor, and I was like, yeah, okay, can do that.
That's what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you stay in touch with your fellow American soldiers that you've previously met?
Yeah, occasionally. Not as often as I'd like.
Yes.
Are you talking about ones from my time in the American Army, or are you talking about
Here
ones
in
here?
Ukraine, here in Ukraine.
Yeah. I still keep in contact with them.
Yes.
Again, not as much as I probably should,
Sure.
but yeah, definitely.
So, you have worked with fellow sappers from the United States here in Ukraine, right?
No,
No.
actually, the sapper unit there, they were, I think, 2 of them were Ukrainian. One of them was one of them was French. One of them was like Belarusian.
Hmm.
So kind of from everywhere. It was it was kind of a challenge to kind of start
Hmm.
balancing the doctrines because I obviously come from a Western doctrine and they're very, very, very old school, like Eastern doctrine. So it was we kind of butted heads for a little bit, and before we kind of figured everything out. Yeah.
How did you dissolve these differences in national approaches when you had to work together?
uh Really was about sometimes you just have to say no at times. I don't know if it's a Soviet kind of mindset thing
Hmm.
where they don't like saying no.
Hmm.
Especially there, for example, they put out Tanglefoot, and they wanted us to put out Tanglefoot and Sea Wire about 25 meters from the Russian positions. It Which takes time. It takes like
Yes.
it would have taken an hour or two. And I'm like, that's it's probably not a smart idea. And they're like, no, we still want it. And I was like, I'm not sending my guys out to do that. So sometimes it was that, and then sometimes it was just having a sit down if we were given that luxury, and then we would go over the pros and cons of my approach, and then the pros and cons of their approach, and then we would meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So you get to travel a little bit around Ukraine. Are there any similarities you see with Colorado, with your sort of home place?
I haven't been to the Carpathians, and
Hmm.
I really, really want to, just cause of the mountains. I,
Yes.
I really want to go to the Carpathians, especially like Bukovel in the winter. Looks beautiful. I just obviously don't have the time right now.
Yes.
Um, there's not in terms of similarities. I guess Kiev and it's kind of more of a modern big city.
Yeah.
I do like Lviv a little bit more. The architecture is kind of older.
Yes.
There's not so many square concrete glass buildings just shooting up out of the ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have this history that is still preserved in those old buildings.
Yeah, I love it. All the old wooden churches around. Where did I go? I can't remember. It's slightly Busk. I went to Busk and saw like the old wooden churches
Yes.
and
Yes.
the old castles. Really love exploring that.
Excellent. What was the most surprising or exciting thing about Ukrainian culture when you first came here?
It reminded me of the States when I was young.
Hmm.
Uh, you go out in the street in a small village, you see all the children playing. You see them going off on their own, going to the cafes and having a good time. Reminded me of when I was young, Colorado, all the kids running around, tearing around the neighborhood, without parental supervision. They want to get rid of us for a couple hours and give themselves some peace.
Exactly.
Uh, you don't see that a lot in the States anymore. I don't know if that's like a fear thing. I don't know if that's just media because, statistically, the States have been getting safer, but you just don't see kids playing anymore. You don't see them, going out out by themselves to like the ice cream parlor or anything like that. So really love that. I really love the values of the Ukrainian people. For the most part, I like the values of the Ukrainian people. I like the more traditional values. The emphasis on the family. Some of it's dying out in like America and the Western culture, but I do appreciate finding that here, especially, you know, having an Asian heritage. My father and his family and my mother and their family are still big on the family unit. Really appreciate that here.
And you've started to learn Ukrainian, actually.
Дуже трошки.
Дуже трошки, but your pronunciation is excellent.
I appreciate it.
Can you share that experience, because it's a very tricky language, I would say, for you as an English
Your
speaker.
noun cases, oh man, I can't.
Yes.
It's incredibly difficult, and especially when I ask like a tutor, I'm like, hey, how come this noun case is like this in this particular sentence? A lot of times they're just like, that's the way it is. It's kind of like when Ukrainians that are learning English, they ask me like, oh, what's the present progressive like perfect, and I'm like, what is that?
I
It's
didn't
just
dig that deep into the grammar.
exactly like you heard about it once in school type of thing, but it's just natural that you learn. It's just natural. You've learned it. That's the way you spoke all your life,
Absolutely.
and didn't know some of them had names, and I have to Google it really quick, and yeah, it's the same thing.
Does it help if you try to just, practice speaking Ukrainian with folks in the shop or with Ukrainians you meet?
Yeah, actually, the medics, the ones in the clinic on base, they speak pretty good English, and they're okay with me fumbling my way through my Ukrainian. So I kind of help them with their English, and then they help me with my Ukrainian. So I definitely find that helpful.
Perfect. That's how international communication works in Azov.
Exactly.
Look, are you ready to order like a dish in a cafe just in Ukrainian?
Yes.
Yes?
So the nice thing about Cyrillic is it's all phonetic. It is all phonetic. It is not like English where one word is pronounced like three different ways,
Yeah.
and it's just horrible. It's all phonetic. So even if I don't know exactly what I'm saying, I can read it off of a menu.
Indeed.
It's so nice.
Excellent. What do you think about Ukrainian cuisine? Is there any dish, any type of food that you particularly like when it comes to Ukrainian food?
I like it all. It, I like it all. Borscht, vareniki,
What's your favorite? All-time favorite?
favorite.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's not even
Hard to
Chiburek,
pick.
but that's like Georgian, right? Chiburek. It's
Oh,
more Georgian, I
there
think.
is also Crimean Tatar chebureks. Like
Okay.
we have Crimean Tatar restaurants in Kiev, for example, in Lviv,
Okay.
and they serve chebureks, which is, I would say, yeah, part of our Ukrainian heritage.
Okay. I really like Chiburek. Even like coming back from mission, we would always stop and we would get like what is it? Balaj? Is it
Belash,
Balaj
belash,
and
yeah.
Chiburek, and that's a fond memory that I have.
Excellent, great. Another incentive to keep learning Ukrainian.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It surprises me how much you guys actually like smetana. Like there's memes about that have been like starting to slowly fill my feed,
Yes.
and did not expect that.
Absolutely, and we are not even self-conscious about it
No,
because
not at all.
we've been raised with smetana,
Because
from.
everybody loves it.
Absolutely, yes, yes. Great. Any kind of advice, practical advice for those folks who are considering joining Azov, coming to Ukraine and have never been to Ukraine before? What would you tell them?
What would I tell them? If you don't have any military experience, get in shape. Definitely get in shape. That'll save your life. Being able to run like hell to a position or run like hell away from drones,
Yes.
it's definitely going to save your life. In terms of Azov, learn the history. It's a very prestigious unit. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of Russian propaganda about Azov that is not true. So delve into that. Learn the actual history. What they did in Mariupol. Everything like that.
You mentioned management
Hmm.
as one of the reasons why you joined Azov.
Yes.
Did you find the quality of leadership that you expected, that you hoped for here in Azov?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely closer to the Western doctrine that I'm used to. Uh, they actually seem to give half a damn about their guys, and really, it's I like their open door policy.
Mhm,
Like I was saying before, a lot of the people that I ran into in the Legion, they had problems with saying no.
mhm.
especially if it was a suicide mission or something like that. Here, there's an open door policy. Everybody's welcome to give feedback, and it's definitely more squared away.
Right. What other changes have you seen here in terms of, the structure of command, in terms of leadership approaches that you could share with our audience?
The people want to be here. The people in the international battalion want to be here. They're here for a reason. They know of Azov's prestige,
Yes.
and they're here for a reason. They all have that drive.
Great. So if you had to generalize, do sappers have superstitions?
None that I'm aware of. Yeah, none that I can think of. Superstitions? Not really. Most of us are just crazy, because we're the ones poking through minefields and tinkering around with bombs and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So again, I always tell them, if you mess up, it's not really your problem for very long.
So you try to separate your emotional sort of state of mind from the technical work that you are doing in the field, right?
Absolutely, and it kind of comes back to my nickname, right? You can't take it too seriously. If you take it too seriously, you're gonna mess up, or you're gonna freeze, or you're gonna get shaky hands, and that's not something that you can afford.
Yes. Um, I know that you are an instructor for future sappers,
Yes.
right? Who you train on your craft. Um, can you tell us what it's like to train future sappers? What um, challenges do you have to go through when you train them before they start working?
I think the biggest challenge is finding people that are willing to poke through minefields. Because you could sell it to them. You could sell it to them. Most people, they're okay with building a blindage. It's not that fun, but they're okay with doing it. Everybody has to dig at some
Yeah.
point, right? And you can tell them, oh, we get to play with all these explosives, and they're always excited about that. And then as soon as you tell them, hey, you're going to be the one poking through a minefield, they're like, oh, hands off. So that's definitely the biggest thing is actually trying to recruit new sappers, people that are willing to poke through minefields or go inspect downed UAVs and anything like that.
So what is the most essential thing that you are trying to drill into the heads of new recruits?
New recruits or new sappers?
Mhm.
New recruits, if you don't know what it is, don't touch it. New sappers, same thing really. If you don't know what it is, don't touch it. Find somebody who does, or do a little bit of research. A lot of these things have a lot of the electronic mines. They're magnetically activated. So if you go too close with your weapon or something, it'll set it off. Or again, if you don't know if it has a self-destruct timer, and it somehow malfunctioned. Just if you don't know what it is, don't touch it.
As a sapper, do you have any universal advice for folks who are not sappers and not going to be sappers, be they servicemen of other
hmm
specialties or perhaps civilians?
I'm gonna say the same thing. If you don't know what it is, don't touch it. You always drive through the villages, and I saw this out near Yampil, and there was a nice old lady. She had a basket though, and she's just throwing butterfly mines over the fence, and yeah, you can only gamble like that for so long. So again, if you don't know what it is, don't touch it. And always be careful, especially with the Ukrainian mud. A lot of these anti-tank mines, they start sinking after a couple of rain cycles. Just be careful. Just be careful.
Excellent. Do you have to also teach civilians, if you come across them, on these very basic, tenets of safety? Um, would you maybe do that after you go back to the States and can share more experience from what you have seen here?
Honestly, I'm kind of going by the seat of my pants right
Mhm.
now. I originally was going to only be here for a year, and it's been a year and a half so far. So I have no idea. Eventually, I'd like to get my commercial pilot's license, but I have no idea if I might stay here and maybe go with like a humanitarian demining group or anything like that. I honestly have no idea.
Thank you for that honest answer. Let's go back to music
Yeah.
because it really fascinates me how you made this decision to go from this super creative area into military craft.
hmm
Do you still have time for music in your life? Do you keep up with what's happening in either classical or modern music?
I wouldn't say I keep up with it. Sometimes I'm not just afforded that luxury.
Yeah.
I do keep up with music. I have a guitar still out in Sloviansk actually. I gotta go back out there sometime and get it, or just order a new one. I'm not too sure. Um, but music, still love it. Unfortunately, traditional Asian family. We were started on the piano, so
Yeah.
I think I was about 4 or 5. So very traditional Asian family. Definitely better on the piano than I am on the guitar. So if I can find a piano, that would be amazing.
Right. Do you mean like classical piano or electronic piano that is more portable and
either
you can take
either
away?
one I would be happy with.
Okay, great, great. I have my fingers crossed for that.
Yes, same here.
Is there any Ukrainian music that you really like and you
Noth-
came to?
Nothing springs to mind, but I do listen to Ukrainian music. I am trying to learn Ukrainian.
Mhm.
I only figure it's one, it's helpful, but two, I think it's kind of rude if I don't. I'm in their country after all. It kind of rubs me the wrong way when some volunteers specifically don't learn it and they're like, oh, they should just speak English. I'm like, it's not the native language. But definitely listening to Ukrainian music, trying to get the pronunciation sometimes, and just learning new words that way. It's definitely helpful.
So you're from Colorado,
Yes.
which has beautiful nature, marvelous mountains.
hmm
Do you miss those things here in Ukraine?
Absolutely. I cannot stand looking out, and the highest thing that I see is like a flat. Is like an apartment building. That's
Yes.
the word that I'm looking for. It was the same thing. So I went to school in Florida, and it was like the dead center of Florida. I looked out, the highest thing you saw was an apartment building. Can't stand it. I love the mountains.
You have this feeling that something is missing, right?
Yes, exactly,
Has
exactly.
to be the backdrop. Okay, and perhaps, the final advice or words of wisdom for those folks who still, ask themselves, should we be supporting Ukraine, either in the United States or in other countries? What would you say to those folks?
So for me, I didn't come over here because of politics or anything like that. I did not personally feel that it was right that what is the conscription age? It's 25, right? I didn't feel that it was right in my heart that somebody who's 25 should be ripped away from just starting out a job or trying to build a family and forced to fight in a war. I have the willingness to fight. I have the experience, so I figured I should do something. Uh, the more you dig into the politics, the grayer and muddier it gets always. So I think it's the right thing to do. Russia keeps targeting civilian infrastructure, civilian apartment buildings, just civilians in general. You always see in the media about all of these humanitarian groups. What are the police called? The White
White
Angels?
Angels,
The
yeah.
White Angels, yeah. Like their convoys are always getting hit, and they're just there trying to evacuate civilians. And for me, I could not live with myself if I just sat by and did nothing.
Gook, thank you so much for that conscious choice. Really appreciate your time. Great talking to you.
It was a pleasure.